it's Kelly from Breakfast at Kelly's, and today I'm going to teach you how to make the pumpkin sourdough loaf. You can use this for any artisan bread recipe, but for me, I usually make sourdough, so that's what I make my pumpkin sourdough with. First things first, you're going to want to preheat your French ovens or Dutch ovens. I have two of them, luckily, and they are both white, and I baby them. So what I do first is I actually rinse them before I stick them in the oven, and that just helps take away any of the dust that's on them and hopefully prevents it from baking onto the oven while it's in that super hot oven preheating or baking the sourdough loaf. So I just quickly dampen them and then stick them in the oven and then preheat my oven to 475. And you're going to want to let them preheat in there for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour at least. And that way they'll be nice and hot for when you're ready to drop your scored bread into them. So next step, I have two sourdough loaves. I'm going to be scoring one of them on camera here for you. I have one banneton that's round and the other one I just using this glass bowl. So I'll use the glass bowl one for this demonstration. So first things first, sourdough loaf. I use this turntable right here. And then you're going to want a plate to turn your sourdough onto. And then also, when you're dropping your sourdough into the Dutch oven, you're going to want a piece of parchment paper. I cut mine with these wings on it, and this actually prevents your dough from getting wrinkles in it when you drop it in because there's not as much parchment paper to go around the loaf of bread. Anyways, let's get started. I have pre-cut baker's twine. Mine's pink just because I happen to have pink baker's twine in the house, so that's what I'm using. I lightly oiled them. This isn't necessary. I have done it before without oiling them, but I do find it actually makes it a little bit easier to remove the thread after it's done baking. So you're going to want them to be quite long. And first things first, you're just going to lay them evenly over your sourdough. Now that those are evenly on the sourdough, I am going to take one of my pieces of parchment paper and lay that over top. Try and get it as centered as possible. Like, it's not completely necessary, but it will help you in the end. And then I just use a plate and then grab my bowl from underneath and flip it over. Okay, so from here you can remove your banneton or whichever bowl that you were using. And then you can also remove your linen tea towel. Okay, so after straightening out your strings, you're going to want to make sure that your bread is nicely coated. I'm just using a gluten-free flour because my bread's not going to absorb that, but it's going to create a beautiful contrast when the bread is baking, and then through the score lines, you're going to see that darker color on the inside. So I do recommend giving your bread a nice coating. Most people do use rice flour. I just use gluten-free flour because that's what I have on hand. Been baking sourdough since the beginning of COVID, and I still haven't bought rice flour. I always forget every time I'm at the grocery store. So you're going to drop your bread onto your turntable. And again, make sure your strings are nice and even. Oh, what am I doing? There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so strings are nice and even, and then from here, we're just going to be tying them. Now, when you're tying your strings, you don't want to be snug, but you also don't want them to be super loose. The tighter they are, the more indent you're going to get in your pumpkins. So I just kind of tie them, and then if you can see, let me just bring this up, I can fit my finger underneath. That was a little bit too loose. So you don't want it to be completely touching the pumpkin, but you do want it to be quite tight. So I'm just going to tie it there, and I tie it in a double knot. And you want all of your strings to be evenly tight. Okay, so now everything is tied. You can feel they're all about the same tightness. And now we're going to go around and you're going to grab your kitchen scissors and you're just going to be cutting off all these extra threads. So I always make sure I grab them and pull them just so you don't accidentally cut one of the ones that are holding your pumpkin in. So everything is tied up. Pumpkin looks good. Now it's time to score our bread. Okay, so the scoring is all done. You can see here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be dropping this into my Dutch oven. I'm going to give it probably another 15 minutes or so, and they are going to bake. welcome back. The sourdough is finished. And now we're gonna cut the strings off and we're gonna put the stems in them. So anyways, gonna take your sourdough. So here we are. Looks pretty perfect to me. And then from here, you're just gonna cut off the strings and you can just peel them away. So some of them, they might be a little bit stuck and that's totally normal, so don't be alarmed or anything. But yeah, just peel them away. They're gonna make a little bit of a mess with all the flour coming off as well. There's our perfect little pumpkin. Just dispose of those strings, they are done. And then now what we're going to do is you're just going to make a small little incision just in the top, just where you're gonna be putting the stem. So it doesn't have to be a very big hole or anything. And then take your cinnamon stick, and what I find works really good is I just take my scissors, and that looks to be about almost 2 inches, maybe 1 3/4 inches, and you just make a line where you want it to be cut. And then once you kind of have that line in there, you can just snap it apart and it'll break on that line for you. And then I just insert that in the top, just like that. That's it, guys. There's your sourdough pumpkin.